The echoes of the warning issued by the Secretary General of Hezbollah, Sayyid Hassan Nasrallah, to Cyprus in his latest speech have not ceased. He stated that Cyprus would be at the center of any war waged by the enemy against Lebanon if the bases and airports of the island were used. The Cypriot government continued to offer clarifications, emphasizing that they are not involved in any military conflicts and will remain so. Cypriot officials also affirmed that they do not allow their country to be used as a platform for targeting another state. Sayyid Nasrallah's speech coincided with a visit by a delegation from Cypriot officials headed by the Deputy Director of Cypriot Intelligence to Beirut. The delegation had pre-scheduled meetings with the Army Intelligence Directorate to discuss the issue of illegal immigration exclusively. However, the delegation later requested a meeting with the Acting Director General of the Lebanese General Security, Major General Ilyas al-Baysari, and discussed Nasrallah's statements with him. The delegation reiterated to al-Baysari their country's position of not allowing any state to use its territory and air bases to threaten Lebanon, and emphasized that there is absolutely no truth to the rumor that they have decided to stop issuing visas to Lebanese citizens. The delegation also pointed out that there are 2 British bases on the island that are not under the sovereignty of the Cypriot government. You see, the major responsibility lies with the Lebanese government, which has not taken any diplomatic steps to express Lebanon's position regarding the military drills conducted by the Israeli entity army in the city of Paphos on the southwestern coast of Cyprus in preparation for war with Lebanon. Mind you, those drills took place twice. Official Lebanese sources told Press TV that the Lebanese official negligence of this issue is what prompted Sayyid Nasrallah to make this statement in the first place. The sources confirmed that there has been no contact between the Cypriots and Hezbollah since Sayyid Nasrallah's warning, despite the existing relations between the two sides. The warnings and threats from Sayyid Hassan Nasrallah have brought the small island, as he called it, back into the forefront of regional and international calculations due to its strategically sensitive location in the eastern Mediterranean. Israeli occupation forces occasionally conduct joint maneuvers with the Greek Cypriot forces, with continuous reports of significant Zionist Israeli intelligence presence in the southern part of the island. This area represents the internationally recognized Republic of Cyprus, which is a member of the European Union. One notable stance was issued by the opposition Communist Party, the second largest party on the island, which emphasized that Cyprus should be a bridge for peace and cooperation, not a base for war or training ground for any foreign armies. They added, "The struggle of Cyprus aims to rid our island of foreign armies, and any foreign military presence on the island does not add to the security of our people, but rather increases risks and enemies." Welcome to the Middle East Stream. I'm Marwa Osman. Sayyid Hassan Nasrallah's warnings and threats have placed Cyprus at the forefront of regional and international calculations due to its strategically sensitive location in the Mediterranean. In Cyprus, there are 2 British bases, the Kilia and Akrotiri, which are utilized by France and America, as well as the Zionist entity, which has signed several military and intelligence cooperation agreements with the Greek Cypriots many years ago. To discuss this issue with us from Beirut is Dr. Danielle Yagic, academic and geopolitical analyst. A million thank you for being with us this morning, Danielle. Now, Sayyid Nasrallah's warning that Cyprus would be considered part of the conflict if it permits Zionist Israel to use its territory to attack Lebanese territory was surprising not only for them, but for us as well, as it was also a surprise for the Cypriot government. However, knowing Hezbollah, they wouldn't attempt any kind of a threat unless all diplomatic efforts have already failed. How do you assess the timing and the directness of the message issued by Hezbollah chief Sayyid Hassan Nasrallah?
Given the recent developments, I think the Sayyid Nasrallah's speech came at the right time because it needs to be situated in the context of defending Lebanon against not only the Israeli aggression, but also other aggression that may be possible. And given that since October 7, and of course before, the Israeli regime has continued to violate Lebanon's sovereignty and is waging a war against Lebanon, there is of course also reason to believe that Cyprus may be complicit in these crimes. Even before October 7, the Zionist entity media has been reporting about military exchange and training between the armies of Cyprus and the Israeli regime. And of course, if we see the speech of Sayyid Hassan Nasrallah, he very clearly said that should Cyprus be used by the Israeli regime to launch attacks on Lebanon, it will be considered part of this war. Now, of course, the Israeli regime has been committing this genocide in Gaza that is being live streamed for the past 8 months, and Hezbollah is one of the very few actual military forces that have intervened into this war. There is obviously continuously a danger for a broader geographical escalation and spread of this war. So these threats that are coming against Lebanon, not only from the Israeli regime but also from its EU backers, are of course to be taken very seriously.
Mm-hmm. Well, I followed the reactions, I'm sure you did as well, coming from the Cypriot public. And one Reuters report captured public concern in Cyprus that I was reading the other day following Sayyid Hassan Nasrallah's speech, with residents wanting no part in any kind of East Mediterranean conflicts. But what stood out was the opposition Communist Party statement, which emphasized that Cyprus should not be a base for war, but a bridge for peace, and they called for avoiding the involvement of any Israeli entity warplanes, highlighting how risky it would be for all of the Cypriot public. This came from the second biggest opposition party in Cyprus. What does that entail in the current mood of threats and counter threats?
I think it shows, to a certain extent, a lack of consent among the population in Cyprus and other political forces to this complicity in the ongoing Israeli genocide. Cyprus also is one of the few exceptions in the EU that still has a major political party that is somewhat on the left of the political spectrum, given that within the European Union, politics have been shifting to the right and far right in the last years and decades. And of course, Cyprus is a rather small country. It is even smaller than Lebanon. It is not part of NATO, and with these recent actions and its collaboration with the Israeli regime, it may be trying to seek to establish itself as part of the military industrial complex worldwide, in which of course the Israeli regime and the United States have a major role. But it also shows that of course the average citizens in Cyprus do not want to be part of this conflict. And I think it's, again, here another situation where we see how the corrupt political elites in the European Union are focusing on their capitalist interests, on money, on weapons, and on greed. We've also seen that in the media representation of the last speech by Sayyid Hassan Nasrallah, which wasn't depicted as a way to protect Lebanon's sovereignty and protect the citizens and residents of Lebanon from foreign attacks, but rather portrayed as a threat against a European Union country. So more often than not, we see sort of an incitement from the corrupt political elites in the European Union against Lebanon.
Well, that's a bit funny for me, because given that the EU is now complicit in genocide in Gaza, and they're speaking about how the threats are coming from this entity that is considered terrorist. We see you all as terrorists if you don't recognize up until now. But enough about the EU. The Zionist response towards everything that happened did very little to try and ease the embarrassment felt by Cyprus at the official level, with media reports seemingly validating what Hezbollah Secretary General was saying. We had Channel 13 quoted Moshe Shlomonsky, which is a former army radio official, and he said, Nasrallah's words are always backed by evidence. Then you have military correspondent Or Heller highlighted a strategic alliance with Cyprus and with Greece, mentioning that the Israeli occupation army drills simulated the occupation of Cyprus in preparation for a potential conflict with Lebanon, because Cyprus and Lebanon have very similar geographical landscape. Do you think that these developments would mean anything to Cyprus to at least rethink its current warmongering alliance? It's really an unfathomable alliance with the Zionist entity, especially after the genocide. Do you think that they will consider or reconsider this alliance?
Well, it's a good question. I think if Cyprus would actually care about peace and stability, as its president claims, then it would have to reconsider this alliance. But if we even go back before October 7, the Cypriot government has been collaborating with the Israeli regime for many years. The current president of Cyprus has on numerous occasions stressed how Cyprus and the so-called State of Israel share common values. So very much replicating the very hegemonic talking points that we hear from EU bureaucrats. And at the end of the day, it is, of course, Cyprus being part of the European Union that is fostering a global apartheid, because Cyprus is part of the EU, which represents a tiny minority of the world's population, but has a significant political impact beyond its borders that oftentimes functions as a proxy for the United States. Given that the island of Cyprus also hosts two UK military bases, and there have been reports that there is also an exchange there with the United States and spy agencies. Of course, Cyprus has a strategically very important position for the US and the EU. The question really is who the Cypriot government is serving, whether the peace and stability in the region or the interests of Washington, D.C. and Brussels. And the recent developments indicate that the latter is, of course, the case, which brings us back again to the equation that we currently have, in which the Lebanese resistance is, from a defensive perspective, trying to defend Lebanon, whereas Cyprus continues for military, financial, and in fact capitalist purposes to continue its alliance with the Israeli regime. And just want to add that we keep on obviously talking about the current situation and the ongoing genocide, which of course did not start on October 7. None of the European governments, including Cyprus, ever had any issue with apartheid, with ethnic cleansing, with the military occupation, with the continuous Israeli violations of Lebanese sovereignty, Lebanese airspace in the past decades. So what we see today is very much a continuous European, and in this case also Cypriot, effort to safeguard their own global apartheid, to safeguard the interests of the genocidal entity in a world where the European Union is increasingly losing its relevance.
Definitely, I hear you. And it's like, we will fight you, we will kill you. You're not supposed to say a word, you're not supposed to fight back. And this is the essence of this struggle. I want to thank you.